Hello and welcome to Connection First. You might be seeing me now live because this podcast is now on YouTube. So thank you for being here and Happy New Year because this is going to be going live in 2025. And I am excited not only because it's the final episode that I recorded in 2024, but also because I invited a very special guest to chat with me. He's actually a dear friend from uni, and our paths have been quite different. We live in different continents, in different places. She's in Miami, I'm in Sydney. But over the last few years, our paths have been crossing around the conscious parenting because, as she described it in her recording of the interview in Spanish, because we recorded it in Spanish, so today I'm going to be chatting with you about everything that we talk about. It was a very interesting conversation, but she was saying how she got to know about conscious parenting and about Dr. Shefali, who is the person that she studied with, who created the principles, the main principles of conscious parenting. And she got to know those things throughout this podcast, actually. And she got so keen and interested that she ended up studying it. And she described on the conversation that we had how it transformed the relationship that she has with her kids now. She realized that her parenting, as much as she thought she was being conscious, she was pretty much more trying to control her kids and make them a small version of herself. And she had very high expectations on how things should be, and she wasn't really focused on who her kids were. She wasn't allowing them to be themselves and to show their real personalities. And now she's transformed that and the relationship with conscious parenting. So when she went through all of this transformation and saw how the changes help her, she decided now to help other parents. So she's now a parent coach and practicing the principles of conscious parenting. We have been having really, really heartfelt and deep conversations about parenting. And every time that we discuss things related to conscious parenting and to our kids, the ego always comes up. And it's interesting because we can spend hours talking about what we both know about ego and how we have become very aware on how the ego can interfere in our relationship with our own kids. So I decided that it was a very good topic to bring up to the podcast. I hadn't talked about the ego, and she has a very, very good understanding and about the ego. So anyways, we had a really lovely chat, and we both share our knowledge around it with the hope that you can understand a bit more what's the relationship that there is between the ego and parenting, because many times you don't realize it's like, what does the ego have to do with parenting? Like, but the ego gets in the middle many times, that if we are not careful, it can run the show sometimes. And when we create this awareness of like, okay, this is what is happening, this is not coming from me and my intuition and who I am, this is coming from my ego. When we realize that and we are able to create that awareness around it, then we are able to transform our responses. Because when you put light on something that you didn't realize before, that you didn't see it that clearly before, you are able to make changes. When you don't realize where that came from and where is the ego coming, like what is happening here, like is that really coming from me, why did it react in that way, it's so hard to make changes when you are not aware of those things. So we have talked here about the triggers before and our inner child, and it's all interconnected, but the ego is more related to the mental construct that we have in our heads of who we believe we are or should be. When we feel afraid, and I have this quote to read for you. It's like, when we feel afraid, have feelings of unworthiness, or are triggered, the ego steps in to protect us from our pain. This keeps us unconsciously living our past and keep us stuck in patterns that no longer serve us. This is from Nicole LePera. She has an amazing book that I read last year, How to Be the Love You Seek, and she covers a lot about the ego. So I learned with her and with Dr. Shefali, who is the person that my friend studied with conscious parenting and that we refer to throughout the podcast as well a lot, because she has a brilliant way to explain the ego related to parenting. Pretty much the ego is that image that we made of ourselves, that we have in our heads of who we are or who we are supposed to be, but not based in who we are deep, like our souls and our intuition, but based on past memories, information that we gathered together, the way we were raised. When we talk about conscious parenting, we talk a lot about understanding our patterns, our triggers, and understanding where we are coming from with the responses that we are. And many times the way we respond is out of fear. It's because we have a fear that our kids are something is gonna happen to them because you saw something like that happening when you were younger, or you are afraid of the way you're gonna be seen socially if you made this or that decision in front of someone with your kids. And one of the ways to understand the ego when we compare to the intuition, for example, is that the ego, it wants to protect us. It's bringing up all the past experiences and fears and everything, and wants you to have your feet grounded. It wants you to be like acting out of fear because something could happen. As I said before, it's a way that you're going to be seen. It's a way that you believe you need to act in a certain situation. But that way is not necessarily coming from you, from your intuition, from the way that you are. Our intuition is going to come straight away. It's a decision that you, when you think about it, it's like, yes, do it. And straight away without overthinking. The ego is what comes after. It's all the things that come. So in theory, we need both, because we need a balance between both. The problem with that is that when it's coming from our inner child, or when it's coming from our guilt or from feelings related to other things that are not really related to the present moment, it is so easy that our response is not according to really what is happening. Because the ego comes from our needs. It comes from the parents' needs. It doesn't come from the child's needs. So if we talk about connection, and you put it together with the ego, it is really hard to connect with a child when you are responding or reacting from your ego, because you are thinking about you, and the way that whatever your child is doing is going to affect you. Is the expectations that we have. For example, my friend on the interview in Spanish was talking about when her son turned 1. She lived in Miami, and she felt like she needed to bring her son to celebrate the first birthday. She needed to bring it. And this is a very basic example, but there are many other ways that if you think about it, it might be present, right? But anyway, she thought that she wanted to bring her son to Disney, and it was going to be the amazing experience. And she had all of these expectations, right? We are going to talk now about expectations and how it relates to the ego, because our expectations come from the ego majority of time. So she called her parents. She asked her husband to take days from work. She booked the hotel right in Disney to have breakfast with Mickey and all of these, many expectations. She showed the pictures to her son. This is me when I turned 1 and I was in Magic Kingdom doing this and that. And she got there, and her son was crying. She described how he cried the whole time. He didn't enjoy breakfast with Mickey. He didn't enjoy any of the park or experiences. He felt probably, overwhelmed, or he wasn't in the place he wanted to be. And she uses now that as an example to explain how many times it was your expectations, and it was your expectations what was really dragging you there. The child was very little. Of course, the child couldn't talk, but probably if it could happen, even if your child already talks, it can tell you something and you're like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be, because it's the way you think it needs to happen. So these expectations that we put around our kids many times come from our own needs. And many times come from our inner child, and the needs that our inner child has. Whatever needs that weren't met when we were little, we might try to meet them when our kids are older. It also comes from the way you might be seen, as well, as I was describing before. So it's like, how am I going to be seen if I take my son to Disney in his first birthday? That's going to show that I care so much and that I am the best mom ever. And I feel like many times the ego, when it tries to protect us, puts our expectations around the fear of being judged, for example, or the fear of being seen this or that way, or the need of approval. Many times it's our own need of approval or need of control. One of the things with the inner child as well is that you couldn't control many things growing up. So what happens as an adult? You want to control as many things as you want to, but that's your need. It's not coming from who you are and what your child needs. So that's pretty much to understand a little bit how it is all interconnected. And when you say, for example, to a child, like, you don't cry here, like, you're not supposed to cry. It's like, why? If you go to the child needs and the child is hungry or tired or needs to sleep, that child needs to cry, so well, to show emotions. So the problem with the ego is that when the ego steps in and we make decisions around our ego and our own needs and our fears, and we ask our kids to disconnect from who they are and to put their needs many times on a side in order to please our own needs. And this is the problem. This is when it can have many repercussions for them, because that's not going to help them understand who they really are and feel safe to show the needs that they have with you. So going back to the intuition, a way to understand between the ego and our intuition is our intuition is related to what is underneath all the mask and belief that we might have. What's underneath that? And the ego is what is the way that you see the picture of who you are or who you are supposed to be. And a way that my friend said that she was told is a great way to see the difference and to see it clearly for yourself is ask questions in a certain situation. Ask questions to yourself that you can reply with a yes or no. So whenever you think like, should I let my son go to this place for a sleepover? What's coming first? Without all the stuff that is going to come after, on all the noise and the information that you're going to gather, what's coming first? That's your intuition. Whatever comes first, when you ask a specific question of yes or no, that's your intuition, most likely. And then whatever comes after, it's all the fears of the guilt and the stories that you tell yourself and the belief and all of that. And another way to understand is to ask, is that my belief or someone else's? Is this what I believe and the way I want to do, or is my mom's, for example? Or is this the way that this friend that I admire would do it? In that sense, we can make that difference and understand how we start to I feel when we realize what's the difference, it is so easy to put light on that and be able to take a step back and say, okay, I think that might be coming from my ego. How can this affect my child? Am I reacting because of who this person is, what needs that person have, or am I reacting because of what are my needs and what are my beliefs and what is the way that I'm supposed to be? I mentioned before about the ego and the need of control. So the way that we can see the need of control that sometimes we feel or we have, it's that need of control comes from the ego. Okay, the ego wants to protect you. Okay, it's trying to protect you because it's trying to bring up many other things in order to do something that is going to feel like safe because it's coming from your own needs, right? And we use the way we love our kids and we use our love as a way to justify our control, right? But what happens is that control that we feel that we need to have comes really from our inner child and the things that we need to cover for that inner child, that the inner child have their own needs, right? And what happens is that the more the kids feel that you are trying to control them, the more the kids push back, disconnect from you, and reveal against you eventually. That's what happens. And the most scary part is not that the child is going to rebel from you eventually when it feels that need of control or that you're trying to control him or her constantly. It's also that it's going to rebel from themselves, because when we are constantly telling our kids, like when our relationship is coming from our ego, we are going to put our own needs first, and our kids are going to learn to do it as well. So it's going to be very hard for them to find authenticity. One of the things that the ego really likes is to create labels around our kids and to put labels on our kids according to our own belief or our own hopes for them and expectations. And even before our kids are born, we have already expectations. And me and my friend were talking in our podcast in Spanish about how it happens a lot with boys, for example. We both have boys. Well, she has a boy and a girl, and I have two boys. It happens a lot in sports that you are pregnant and you think that you're going to have, the most passionate football player, soccer player of all of them, that's going to be super sporty. And you start making these ideas in your head that are only coming from your own needs, your own expectations, your own hopes, your own belief systems, your own past experiences. And then when your child comes and wants to show you who that person really is, you're not creating room for that many times. You are telling them what they are supposed to do. And as soon as they come playing that they are doctors, it's like, you're going to be a doctor like your granddad was. And you create these stories like, oh, he wants to be a doctor. And we need to create a space for them to show you who they are. If we are constantly telling them who they are supposed to like, what sports they are supposed to play, we are not letting them show us what they like and creating some space and room for that to support those dreams that they have, those hopes that they have, those sports they want to play, those things he wants to share with us. So anyways, I feel in order to change the way we relate to our kids and connect with them, we need to be able to really understand ourselves, understand where we are coming from when we are with our kids, the way we respond to our kids, and yes, understand how our ego gets in the middle many times. My friend was giving a really good example about these expectations that we have, and she said that a way to see it is that when you go to watch a movie and before watching that movie, someone comes and tells you, oh, this movie won all the Oscars last year and the Golden Globe and blah, 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 whatever it is. Like, this movie is the best movie you're going to see. This is the best one. Like, the actor is amazing. The director was incredible. And then you go to the movies and it's like, really? Like, oh my God, I was expecting a lot more because you had so many expectations and hopes. And then when you turn the TV on a Sunday night randomly and the first movie that is recommended in Netflix is whatever because of whatever you have seen before, and you play that movie and maybe it becomes the best movie ever because you didn't have any expectations. You were like an open white book, like ready for whatever was coming and to start writing its own story. Like, it wasn't something that you were expecting or anything. And she says that that's the way we should approach our kids. No expectations, simply being there to see who they are and letting them show you who they are. So I feel this is really, really important and really useful for us as parents. And our kids are going to be grateful for our efforts to appreciate who they really are. And we can't connect with someone that we are not accepting. And a way to accept our kids is to really appreciate them for who they are and taking all the noise and all the expectations and things that we have to the side and letting them show us who they are. And I really believe letting them be authentic, it's one of the best gifts. And helping them get to know themselves, it's something that it's an incredible gift that we can give them when they are little and that they are going to carry around forever. Many of us, I feel, we don't really know ourselves until we become a certain age. And it's because we had our parents telling us constantly what we were supposed to do, believe, do. Anyways, we are all here doing the best we can with the tools and the information that we have. I really believe and I really hope this was helpful. And thank you so much for listening. And remember to practice the pause. When we pause before we react, we are able to tackle in and to get deep down and check where we are really coming from with the way that we want to respond for our kids. Thank you for being here. If you like this episode, please share it with someone that might enjoy it too. We're going to continue chatting about this topic and a lot more this year. I'm very excited with all the things that we're going to be covering in Connection First in 2025. Remember to follow the podcast, subscribe so you get the latest updates. Thank you and bye-bye.